fading skies. Tattered flags waving dreams in our eyes. The crowds roar like a storm on the wind. We're the underdogs fighting again.
What's going on, guys and gals, and welcome to another edition of Stateside Footy. It is Tuesday night, and that means it's time for another edition of USMNT Yanks Abroad. It is our weekly recap of U.S. men's national team pool players that, apply their trade in Europe. And, of course, this was actually kind of an interesting week for those pool players. And quite honestly, man, there was some good results and there was, there was some okay results. Before we get into it, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. We have just rounded the corner to 400 and now we are pushing at 500. So I do want to say thanks to you guys for, showing me some love. And of course, if you guys are tuning in on X, I appreciate it. And of course, if you're tuning in on TikTok Live, the link is in the description. So if you guys do want to head over to YouTube, you're more than willing to absolutely do that. All right, let's go ahead and get into it because we do have some news and notes for you that we are going to get into. And we start with Ricardo Pepi, the PSV striker. Over the weekend, Fulham actually has increased their bid to 32 million euros. In an attempt to get Ricardo Pepi from PSV into the Premier League. And now here's the interesting thing. I've heard conflicting reports about this. And when I say conflicting reports, what I'm essentially saying is like opinions on Twitter. Let's just kind of go right there. And, some people saying that this is not necessarily the right move right now, considering the World Cup is only 4 months away. And me personally, I go in the opposite direction because quite honestly, if you have an opportunity to get to the Premier League, you take it whenever you can get it. Because let's be perfectly honest, he's going to be on the World Cup roster regardless. I don't think there's going to be any. I don't see how his roster spot becomes in jeopardy just because he makes a jump to Fulham. And oh, by the way, think of the strikers that are currently in Fulham right now. And yes, I would say that Raul Jimenez is a pretty solid Premier League striker. But that being said, he's 36 years old, and of course Fulham are actually looking to the now and also to the future as well too. And Ricardo Pepi's player profile fits actually unbelievable with Fulham, and especially when you consider Marco Silva and the system and the style in which he likes to play football. This is actually a pretty good fit. Me personally, I would probably assume that, as soon as he's healthy, he's most likely going to see the field. I don't think that, you're going to pay X amount and then, restrict his minutes when he actually comes back. He's going to play. And again, when you consider our striker pool, that's going to be available at the World Cup, Ricardo Pepi's going to be there. I don't think there's unless he gets hurt like 3 weeks before the World Cup, I highly doubt that Mauricio Pochettino is going to leave him back. Now, on the flip side, I can understand the reasoning of I can understand the reasoning that some people would think that he would be better off staying at PSV because obviously he's the starting striker there. But that being said, any opportunity to get to the Premier League, you take it, and you sort out the other shit later. 100%. You don't pass up an opportunity to go to the Premier League, regardless if it's a World Cup year. He's going to be there one way or another. The U.S. are carrying 3 strikers, and I can automatically guarantee you that one of those guys is probably not going to be Josh Sargent. It's probably going to be the 3, and it's probably going to be Ricardo Pepi, Flo Balogun, and probably Patrick Agyemang that are going to be the 3 strikers that are going to end up in the World Cup. Me personally, this would be an absolute huge move for his career. The question is whether or not you think that he may or may not be ready for the Premier League. That being said, like he's one of like 3 U.S. men's national team players that actually has that gene in him that just will not allow him to fail. This dude is an absolute savage. And going to a team like Fulham that does not have the expectations of an Arsenal or a Liverpool or a City or a Tottenham, where the expectations are absolutely rampant. You have to show up and you have to produce. Fulham fans understand exactly where they are in the pecking order when it comes to expectations. And if they get a guy like Ricardo Pepi, who is now just coming into his prime, that has developed in a league like the Eredivisie, they're going to give him they'll give him a couple of years before they'll make that decision about whether or not he's good or not. That being said, it's going to allow him time to adjust and get settled and get bedded in. But that being said, I think that's actually kind of a perfect spot for him if you're going to the Premier League. Me personally, you take it, you run with it, and you don't ask questions because he's going to be at the World Cup regardless. Quickly, I got my guy Ace Lionel, 44. He says, "I'm waiting on here. I'm waiting on the here we go." Okay, that's dude. You actually had me thrown for the loop right there, bud. All right, the other thing is Josh Sargent, and this thing has actually been quite a soap opera. And Josh, apparently Toronto FC has improved their bid for Josh Sargent. Obviously, he's played his last match for Norwich after what ended up being a heated argument, and word came out that the argument had a lot to do with his wife. And I think at that point, if you're Josh Sargent, you're like, dude, yeah, that's going to be it for me. And of course, his wife was the one. Turns out his wife is the one that's pushing this more than Josh. Now, in this, I guess you can say in the soap opera, Josh Sargent has explicitly said that it's Toronto or nothing. And it turns out there are bids from the Premier League. It turns out Leeds United has actually made a bid for Josh Sargent. It turns out Burnley has made a bid for Josh Sargent. So there's 2 Premier League sides that want him to be on their team, which it's kind of interesting to think that maybe Josh, has taken a second to think of it. But that being said, it's obvious that he wants to be close to the United States. He wants to be in Major League Soccer. I would probably assume there's personal reasons for that, and I'm actually 100% all for that. If he wants to come back, fair enough. And I actually think that would, may or may not be good for his career, but whatever. I mean, you're going to a league that is specifically built around attacks. Not exactly the greatest defenses in the world, so it's not unheard of to think of a dude like Josh Sargent's going to score 25 goals in Major League Soccer and be one of the best in the league. But more likely than not, he's going to be handsomely paid as well too. Now, the reason why Norwich hasn't accepted this bid is because of the number that has come out. Now, apparently there's something in his contract where if Norwich get relegated, the offer in which they can receive reduces considerably. And I think what Norwich is doing right here, now this is just my own personal opinion, because last summer there was a 24 million euro agreement that was actually agreed upon between Wolfsburg and Norwich for the service of Josh Sargent, only for Josh Sargent to put the kibosh on the deal. And what I think is, I think Norwich is looking for the exact same evaluation, right? If one team is willing to do it, then, certainly another team would be willing to do it. But that being said, when you look at the season that he's had, I think Toronto is looking. I think Toronto is looking at it at market value. They're not lowballing him, but they're also not going to pay a premium to get him. They're actually going to try to get him for what his market value suggests that he's worth. So from that standpoint, I can understand where Norwich here is posturing. But that being said, I would probably assume this deal will get done within the next week. I think we're only like what now 5. What day is it today? Today is the 27th. So yeah, we have like 5-6 more days left in the transfer window in England before that thing shuts tight on the 2nd of February. And I would probably assume this deal gets done, because if you're Norwich City, number one, if you don't move them, you're not going to play them. And so the value plummets. And so from that standpoint, you're going to get relegated anyways. Like Norwich is probably going to get relegated. I know that Ali Ahmed has come over from Vancouver, and he's been absolutely terrific for Norwich. And I think in his two matches that he's played over there. And of course, all of a sudden, Norwich has actually found some results recently. And so maybe they're getting a bounce. But that being said, it's like when you look at the way that they play football, they have been absolutely dreadful all season, and it's going to take a lot of wins for them to dig themselves out of that hole. Is it possible? Sure. But the reality is, it's like if you're going to keep him, the only thing you're doing is decreasing his value. And if you do get relegated, you're going to get less than £10 million for him. It doesn't make any sense if you're, at least to me. So if you're Norwich, you take the money now and you get what you can get from, and you let this dude go back to the United States or Canada, whatever, North America, and you let him be close to his family, because obviously this is a family-related issue. That's the only reason why he's coming back. And there is a reason why he said it's only Toronto and nobody else. So, again, I don't have a problem with this. I really thought that maybe Josh would stick it out, because I actually think he's pretty close to the Premier League, and I actually think he could help Premier League teams. But, when your wife is telling you she's ready to go home, you got to listen to your wife, man, unfortunately. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. And we're going to begin, which we always begin, with strikers. And, of course, we'll start with Flo Balogun. His Monaco side drew 0-0 with Le Havre. I like calling it Le Havre. It's Le Havre. Ballo played a full 90, managed 2 shots on net, 1 chance creation, 27 touches, 6 in the opposition box, 8 of 12 of accurate passing, and there was nothing else. It was kind of a blah performance from Ballo. He was playing almost as a false 9 in a 2-striker system against a team like Le Havre, right? Not exactly the greatest of French opponents, but that being said, I didn't think it was really all that great. This is usually the type of teams that he scores, and he scores multiples against. Le Havre doesn't have exactly the greatest defense, but I guess kudos to them. They were able to shut him out. But I gave Flo a 6 rating nonetheless, because quite honestly, it was average. I guess 6 would be above average. So like realistically, like 5.5, but I was being a little nice. I was kind of grading on that curve a little bit. How about Patrick Agyemang? And again, Patrick is starting to come alive. He's actually hit a little bit of a purple patch. And I know that there's this, there's this thing going on right now. And I think Noah Reith is the one that's doing it on Twitter, is he's kind of trolling championship fans, essentially hyping Major League Soccer as a better league than the championship, which is not even remotely. But when it comes to a guy like Patrick Agyemang, and especially after, I don't want to say the entire Gold Cup, but by and large, after the Gold Cup, there was kind of a rap against him a little bit. I will say that his first half was decent in Major League Soccer. It wasn't necessarily overwhelming, but he makes a step up. And of course, there was, the injury that kept him out till October. And then, of course, there was some time. But lately, over the course of the last month, he's actually caught on fire. And against West Brom, they, by the way, Derby County drew West Brom 1-1. He played 85 minutes, scored their only goal on one shot, 28 touches, 3 in the opposition box, 9 to 10 of accurate passes. And it looks like he was also 2 or 3 unsuccessful dribbles. I gave him a 7.5 rating because this dude just seems to be right now taking advantage of, I guess you can say, the lightness of Derby's schedule kind of right now. They're not necessarily playing the heavies of the championship. West Brom is West Brom. No disrespect, but Agyemang is taking advantage. He's doing everything you're supposed to be doing, trying to establish yourself as somebody that wants to potentially make that next jump. And so right now, the only thing that he needs to do is continue the consistency, because as of right now, I have him on the March roster. 100% I have him on the March roster. The only question, who's going to be behind him? Is it going to be Haji Wright? Is it going to be Josh Sargent? Who's it going to be? Or is it going to be like fill it in with major league striker? You know what I mean? Like, who knows? Who knows who that's going to be? But Agyemang is definitely going to be on that roster. And if he's on the March roster, chances are pretty good. That's an indicator that he's going to be on the World Cup roster. I graded him out at a 7.5. Also in the striker pool, Haji Wright was Haji Wright. And again, it was okay. Let me confer with my notes real quick. Pew. There we go. Sorry. Haji Wright played 71 minutes against Norwich City. Coventry lost 2-1. And Haji, he played 71 minutes, had 4 shots, 22 touches, and didn't necessarily do enough to, like you're at the tip of the spear. Like, Haji actually got off to a really good start this year, and it's tapered up. As a matter of fact, he was good all the way up into the October camp. And then he went on a 17 match in all competitions goalless drought before he finally got a winner a couple weeks back. But that being said, his performances haven't been lackluster. It has been very lackluster. And also, Damian Downs is also on loan at Hamburg from Southampton, and he has yet to score for Hamburg. And so, from that standpoint, that is the list of strikers for this week. Obviously, Josh didn't play. Let's go ahead and talk about some forwards, because Christian Pulisic did make an appearance in a 1-1 draw against Roma. He only played 21 minutes, so there really wasn't a lot to go off of. 10 touches, 3 or 4 of accurate passes, 1 of successful dribbles, 2 or 3 of ground duels. It was 21 minutes. So I gave him a 6, but Christian has been kind of on a little bit of a goal drought recently. And I don't think it's a lack of form. I just want to say that. I don't think it's a lack of form. I just think that for Christian, it's weird because I feel like he's being rotated in a way where maybe that is kind of for me. I think that might be the issue, where he's not necessarily playing every single match, not playing a full 90 every single match. So maybe there's like a disruption in rhythm. That's a good question. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't want to jinx it. That's my biggest problem here. I don't want to jinx Pooley. But nevertheless, he got a 6 rating for his 21 minutes. Malik Tillman, by the way, as Bayer Leverkusen beat Werder Bremen 1-0. He did play 33 minutes, made 23 touches, 8 of 14 of accurate passes, 1 of 1 of accurate long ball. And again, that was pretty much it for Malik Tillman. This match coming off a match where he played a full 90, and so I think there was some rotation in this one. Obviously, there was some rotation in this one. I gave him a 6 rating, even though it was kind of a lackluster performance. What I will say is for Malik Tillman this year has been just consistency when it comes to the work rate, and eventually you're just kind of hoping that GA follows him. It's been far and few in between, and I know some people are a little worried about it. Me personally, I'm not worried at all. He was making a massive step up from the Eredivisie to the Bundesliga, and he's going to actually one of the best teams in the Bundesliga. And so I thought there was going to be a little bit of a learning curve. I would probably assume that towards the end of the season, we're probably going to see the very best of Malik Tillman. You're kind of hoping it came a little earlier, but I don't think I'm really all that concerned. But I don't know. There are some people that are a little bit concerned. Weston McKennie, as Juventus beat Napoli 3-0. West played a full 90. Did manage a shot on net, 2 chances created, 49 touches, 21 of 31 of accurate passes, 5 into the final third. He also ended up with 2 tackles and 5 clearances, 2 of 3 of aerial duels, good for a 7 rating, and this dude's been on fire. And recently we just heard his new head coach come out there and I guess you can say glow wondrously about him, about the fact that he can also be used as a striker as well too. And so it looks like Weston McKennie is facilitating, 5 different positions for Juventus. And it seems kind of wild that they're going to allow West to go after this season, considering the stretch of play that he's been on. And it seemed like he was essentially scoring every single week for the last 4 weeks. That's how it felt like. And it's interesting. And I think that maybe this is an opportunity where Wes is essentially just showing exactly how valuable he can be to a big club, because I actually think there is going to be a move to the Premier League after the World Cup. I would be shocked if he didn't find himself playing somewhere in the Premier League in 2026. Lastly, Brendan Aronson, as Leeds played Everton today to a 1-1 draw. Brendan played 85 minutes, managed a shot, 1 chance created, 50 touches, 3 in the opposition box, 23 of 26 of accurate passes, 12 defensive contributions. Good golly. 3 tackles, 6 recoveries, which was good for a 7 rating as well too. And one of the things that I actually appreciated about this is leading into this match, I think he did an interview where he said he wants to be a Leeds legend. And I absolutely dug it. I like the balls on Brendan Aronson, man. That is saying a lot, considering the long list of legends that Leeds have in their club. And for him to be, the American that didn't work out the first time, leaves, come back, and then he ingratiates himself with the club in the championship, makes the step up to the Premier League, and he's actually been fairly good this season, to a point where I actually have him on my World Cup roster. I actually think he's going to be the type of dude that is actually going to make that happen. So from that standpoint, I hope Brendan becomes that Leeds legend. Let's turn to our center defensive bids. Tanner Tessman in Olympique Lyon beat Metz 5-2. He played a full 90, had 52 touches, 4 in the opposition box, 25 of 34 of accurate passes, 2 of 2 in successful dribbles, 7 defensive contributions, 4 of 5 of ground duels, 2 and 2 in aerial duels. That was good for a 7 rating. And now all of a sudden, Tanner Tessman is back playing very good football. I know he took a knock there and was missing for a few weeks, and it took a couple weeks for him to kind of get back to a full 90. But now that he's back, he's absolutely ripping it up in the French Ligue 1. I guess the question I have for you guys out there is, when is that dude going to get a Premier League offer? Because I actually have a feeling it's coming within the next 2 seasons. I would not be shocked to see somebody look at Tanner, look at his profile, especially in the system that they're playing there, and some coach is going to be like, yeah, I feel it. I think he's going to be one of those type of dudes. By the way, I gave him a 7 rating. Let's talk about Aiden Morris. As Middlesbrough beat Preston North End 4-0. Aiden played in 61 minutes, had 1 shot, 1 chance created, 39 touches, 33 of 33 of accurate passing. He was actually a perfect passer, which actually topped everyone in that match, both sides. 3 into the final third, only 1 of 1 of accurate long balls. And outside of that, defensively speaking, wasn't exactly all that thrilling. Granted, it still was a clean sheet, and I gave him a 6.5 rating. James Sands and St. Pauli drew Red Bull Leipzig 1-1. He played 77 minutes, had 46 touches, 28 of 38 of accurate passes, 3 into the final third, 3 defensive contributions, 6 recoveries, 4 of 5 on ground duels, 1 of 2 of aerial duels, and that was good for a 6.5 rating as well, too. Lastly, Johnny Cardoso, and now Johnny's made consecutive appearances in my rundown. As Atletico Madrid beat Mallorca 3-0, he played 73 minutes, had 54 touches, 33 of 40 of accurate passes, 5 into the final third, 3 of 4 of accurate long balls, 6 defensive contributions, 2 interceptions, 6 recoveries, 2 of 5 of ground duels, 3 of 7 of ground duels, 2 of 5 in aerial duels, and that was good for a 7 rating. And now Johnny Cardoso is regaining that consistency. This has actually been kind of a shitty year for Johnny, dealing with injuries. But that being said, especially, post Gold Cup leading into the fall wasn't exactly great. And of course, leading into the summer, his tournament was actually pretty crappy as well too. And everybody remembers the last time he was in the U.S. shirt. It just was not good. But that being said, if Johnny continues to play this way, he probably will be in the March camp. And I would just hope that this would be an opportunity that Johnny is actually going to get a good hard look in the March camp. And this, of course, you guys have to understand that, yes, I am a Christian Roldan fan. I really am. It just happens to be that he plays for my MLS club, plays for my hometown team. But that being said, it's like if Johnny Cardoso is coming into that March camp on fire, and we know that Tyler Adams is most likely not going to be there, then this is an opportunity for Tanner Tessman and Johnny Cardoso to kind of work the double sixes in that 3-4-2-1. I actually want to see Johnny Cardoso get some of that run back and get some of those good vibes going with the U.S. men's national team, because the dude is an absolute stud. And the last thing I want to see is like Tessman Roldan or Roldan Cardoso. It's like, dude, play your 2 best CDMs. If you're going to go 2-6s, play your best 2-6s. All right, let's talk about some wing backs here real quick. And all right, let me pull that up. I apologize real quick. There we go. All right. And we begin with Anthony Robinson as Fulham beat Brighton 2-0. Jedi only played 59 minutes, had 55 touches, 29 of 43 of accurate passes, 4 into the final third, 2 of 7 of accurate long balls, 5 defensive contributions, 3 clearances, 2 of 4 ground duels, and that was good for a 6.5 rating. He was good. Like there was no doubt about it. But it feels like Jedi is also on in certain instances he's not going to be playing the full 90. I think it's also they want to make sure that the knee is going to hold up, and so from that standpoint, didn't necessarily play the full 90. Totally fine with that. But that being said, it was still a good performance. Brian Reynolds is back into the rundown as Westerlo drew with KV Mechelen. Reynolds played a full 90, had 45 touches, 19 of 25 of accurate passes, 4 into the final third. He was 1 of 1 of accurate crosses, 1 of 2 of accurate long balls, 7 defensive contributions, 2 of 3 of ground duels, 2 of 3 of aerial duels, and that was good for a 7 rating. And quietly, Brian Reynolds of Westerlo has kind of put together a solid season so far. And the question is whether or not that is going to be something that's going to be a value to Pochettino. He's already got 2 high-level right-wing backs in Serginho Dest and Timmy Weah. So from that standpoint, it's like, and of course there's Alex Freeman as well too, who by the way got a move today. And of course, I'm going to finish up by talking a little bit about that because that was actually an excellent move for Alex Freeman. And so I think it just feels like that Brian Reynolds is kind of going to be kind of on the outside looking in, even though that if you've been paying attention to his performances, they have actually been incredibly good. Ace Leonel says, I want to see who really wants it more to start at that 6th position. I would agree. The interesting thing, though, with that, Ace, is that I always fall back to winners. You know what I mean? And that's why I actually think that Christian Roldan makes the World Cup roster, because he's a winner. He's 30 now, and he's like you're always gonna have one of those dudes at the end of your bench. That veteran guy, that good locker room guy. But in the case of Christian Roldan, he's won every goddamn trophy there is to win in the United States. Like, I think there's going to be some value in that. Plus, he's got the ear of the players, and he's also not afraid to tell somebody like Christian Pulisic that his performance is not good enough, and players will listen to it. Let's talk about John Tolkien. Tolkien, in his Holstein Kiel squad, I don't know why I can't remember that. They drew 2-2 with Armenia Belina. I can't pronounce it. Anyway, he played a full 90, had one shot, one chance created, 77 touches, 23 of 36 of accurate passes, 2 into the final third, 2 of 7 of accurate long balls, 16 defensive contributions, 13 clearances, 4 of 5 ground duels, 4 of 7 of aerial duels, and that was good for a 7.5 rating. And now all of a sudden, John Tolkien is having good performances now. And I'll say this again, John Tolkien probably should be the backup left wing back. I don't rate Max Arfson as a wing back. I actually look at him more as a winger, higher up the pitch. I will give him credit. There have been performances where he's looked absolutely great in that position. But that being said, John Tolkien is a better option as a backup left wing back than a guy like Max Arfson. And it's no disrespect. And lastly, we got to talk about Timmy Weah, because Weah, again, playing on the right side, actually had a pretty excellent game of this one. Weah played a full 90 in Marseille, beating Lens 3-1. He had 54 touches, 2 in the opposition box. He ended up with an assist as well, too, on one chance created, 27 of 35 of accurate passes. 3 of those went into the final third, 2 of successful dribbles. 5 of 6 of ground duels. He also had 3 recoveries, 3 clearances. He was absolutely good defensively. And from that standpoint, this is exactly why a guy like Brian Reynolds is going to have a really hard time getting on that March roster, let alone the World Cup roster. But again, that body of work does speak volumes for him. But a guy like Timmy Weah, where you can play him forward or you can play him in a defensive area, it's going to bring far more value. All right, we're going to finish up with the center backs, and we're going to start with Chris Richards, whose Crystal Palace lost 3-1 to Chelsea. And by the way, if you guys are paying attention to the Premier League, Crystal Palace feels like they're coming apart at the seams. He did play a full 90. He did score a goal on a header on one shot, 74 touches, 3 in the opposition box, 51 of 56 of accurate passes, 3 in the final third, 2 of 5 of accurate long balls, 2 tackles, 6 recoveries, 3 of 4 of ground duels, and that was good for an 8 rating. And, Chris Richards is now in a position where he has to step up because Mark Gahey went to Manchester City. And when you lose your captain and your coach comes out publicly and says that he's not going to be back next year, you have to have that guy in the locker room that's going to be able to hold it all together, and that's where Chris Richards steps in. And I also think that is also going to play a pivotal role with the U.S. men's national team as well, too. Mark McKenzie, as Toulouse beat Brest 2-0. McKenzie played a full 90 and got an assist as well, too. He also had a chance creation, 72 touches, 40 of 45 of accurate passes, 8 into the final third, 2 of 2 of accurate long ball, 2 tackles, 7 clearances, 8 recoveries, 3 of 4 of ground duels, 2 of 2 of aerial duels, and that was good for an 8.5 rating. He was awesome. Austin Trusty. Ooh, Austin. I'm calling you out, bud. Celtic drew 2-2 with Hearts, and of course, Hearts is leading the Scottish Premier League. He played 77 minutes, had 47 touches, 24 of 38 of accurate passes, 5 into the final third, 2 of 3 of ground duels, 7 of 10 of aerial duels, but he took a red card in the 74th minute and gets sent off. And by the way, that is good to drop you all the way down to a 5 rating. Austin Trusty, by the way, has been very consistent this season. And yes, there actually has been a lot of injuries this season for him. But when he's been on the pitch, he's been one of their better center backs. This one is inexcusable when you take a red card. And especially in a match with Hearts that, again, that's leading the Scottish Premier. And when you look at what Rangers have been able to rebound, and now that Celtic got rid of Wilfred Nancy and brought in Martin O'Neill, and all of a sudden they're starting to turn their season around. These are the type of matches where you actually can't fuck up. And to draw a red card in a game like that where potentially you could lose, yeah, that's going to drop your rating down. Lastly, Nokai Banks and Osberg drew Freeburg 2-2. He played a full 90. 57 touches, 36 of 37 of accurate passes, 7 to the final third, 3 of 4 of accurate long balls, 12 defensive contributions, 4 tackles, 8 clearances, 4 of 6 at ground duels, and that was good for 7.5 rating. And Nokai Banks must be on the March roster. I don't care what anybody says. That dude has been absolutely outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. And again, this is simple, that what you cannot do is bring Nokai Banks into the March camp and then not sit him, and then sit him. They did that, I think, in September, and it made absolutely no sense. Me personally, I don't like it, because the dude absolutely has to prove to you one way or another that he's capable, even at being 19 years old as he is. And some people will say that he might be a little too young. I think I've even said he's more or less a 2030 guy and not necessarily a 2026 guy, because I got the impression that Pochettino has the 5 names in mind that are going to make up that center back group. But that being said, if he comes into March camp and you give him a match, and he absolutely lights it up, and then you give him a second start and he does it again, then all of a sudden you're going to have to reevaluate, because I swear to God, if they bring him in and they give Miles Robinson starts over him, that will be an absolute injustice. Absolute injustice. Because this kid is absolutely legit. Absolutely legit. All right, let's go ahead and talk about Alex Freeman, because we should. So let me go ahead and share this with you guys. Let's go ahead and show you. All right. So anyway, Villarreal, a very good club in Spain, for those that want to know. So Villarreal have agreed, and by the way, I'm looking at the standings real quick. Villarreal currently are in fourth in La Liga. So they have agreed to deal with Orlando City to sign Alex Freeman. Freeman will join Villa immediately, as Orlando will receive an initial fee north of $4 million plus 3 in add-ons. which could to take the total fee up to $7 million. A sell-on clause will also be retained if Villarreal turn around and sell him on later. And I got to say that this is an unbelievable move for Alex Freeman. And I thought a guy like Diego Luna would potentially get a move first before Freeman, just considering like this is really Freeman's first season, really of being a starter, but that being said, it's been one hell of a year though. When you think about his 2025 season, getting called up into the January camp and impressing so much that they bring you back for the Nations League, and because of injuries, you fill in admirably at that position. Back in 2024 and in some of those, in some of those friendly camps in October and November. In September, we saw Christopher Lund, we saw Marlon Fossey, and then in January it was Max Arfston and Alex Freeman, and of course they played so well that those two were kind of an afterthought at that point, and they improved over the season to a point where even post Gold Cup they're being brought in, and a lot of for the case of Max Arfston, it was because Jedi just couldn't play. And so he was going to get a run. But on the right back spot, Serginho Dest comes back, but Freeman still gets called in. And I think that is Pochettino 100% believing in his abilities, but also if you've paid attention, he's gotten better. He's gotten very better to the point where you start wondering whether or not, he was a little bit too good for Major League Soccer. But this being said, it's like, these are the type of players that you kind of want to retain if you're Major League Soccer, just considering, you want to enhance the profile of your league. And he's also in a spot where they already have a knock for being a shitty defensive league. But that being said, it's like, I'm glad he's going over. I'm 100% glad he's going over. And for Villarreal, now all of a sudden you have a prospect that you get to develop in a league that is going to test him in every single way. And it's going to prepare him for the eventual move to a higher league. And of course, you're going right in the middle. You're being thrown right into the thick of things. Like, again, Villarreal are sitting in fourth in La Liga. And I don't know if they're still in the Copa del Rey or the Copa España. But of course, when you're kind of looking at it, they're on 41 points, so they're 11 points off of Barcelona, but they're only 3 points off of Atletico Madrid. So from that standpoint, they're fighting for Champions League. And now Alex Freeman immediately gets dropped right into it. And I think this is going to be quite an interesting test for him. Number one, we're going to find out if Alex Freeman is ready for it. Maybe not, but it's going to be interesting. Now, what I will say from the Major League soccer side of things is that I was actually kind of shocked at first, because these are the type of players that Major League Soccer actually try to essentially extort European clubs for. Because, one of the things that they essentially have said or tried to make a line in the sand is they didn't want to give up any of their current U.S. men's national team first team players. They kind of wanted to hang on to them because it's like a selling point for the league. And they're going to try their best to bring guys back. Like, Josh Sargent's coming back. There's rumors that Wes might come back. And so from that standpoint, this is something that, they've always been interested in. We all remember when Josie came back and Michael Bradley came back and Clint Dempsey came back. Of course, they were a little bit older, but, this is, young kids that are coming into their prime. And of course, they're already on the national team. And we saw last year when Max Arfston got an offer. And of course, Major League Soccer said that's just not enough. and the deal, put the kibosh, even though that at that time that was actually a perfect deal for Max Arfson at the time. And so there was this running thought that Major League Soccer would essentially hold some of these guys up for hostage. But what I will say is, like, this seems like it's the perfect price for a guy like Alex Freeman, because again, he's only had one real full season in Major League Soccer. And don't get me wrong, it was a hell of a season. But that being said, I don't think it was going to be, a type of position where Orlando City or Major League, actually it's Major League Soccer. He's got a Major League Soccer contract, not a contract from Orlando City. You would think that Major League Soccer would, I was kind of curious to see if they were going to be asking like 10. You know what I mean? Or were they actually going to correctly, have his valuation, be where it needed to be. And I think this is absolutely correct, right? $4 million plus add-ons and a sell-on clause. And I would probably assume that it's a 5% sell-on clause, which means that when, he goes for $35 million in 2 years or 3 years or whatever the case may be, because he's one of the best right backs or right wing backs in Europe, and he gets that move, then obviously Major League Soccer will be compensated yet again. So we'll see. But I think it's a great move, and I think it's a perfect move for him ahead of the World Cup. And there's also talk that Celta Vigo and who else? Celta Vigo, and I think I want to say Real Sociedad have also inquired about Diego Luna. And it's going to be interesting to see whether that deal gets done now or if that's going to be a summer move. I think Real Salt Lake want to start the season with Diego, and then at the summer will be willing to let him go. And I think, here's the interesting thing. I actually think, Diego would benefit from a move now. As far as his World Cup aspirations go as well too, because again, I think Diego is going to be on the World Cup roster just like Alex Freeman, regardless if they stayed in Major League Soccer. But it would also help him going to a country like Spain that allows its players to play with flair, to essentially play free. And Diego has that type of profile, and I would just think that would just enhance Diego. Now, it all depends on which team he went to, whether that was Celta Vigo. I want to say it was like either Getafe or Real Sociedad. I can't remember. Either way, he would have been absolutely brilliant. I think it might have been Real Sociedad that checked in. And of course, Real Sociedad is being coached by U.S. coach Pellegrino Matarazzo. And so that would have been an interesting pairing. And I think it potentially could, but I think that's going to be in the summer. If my guess, if what I'm hearing is right, it's more likely summer. And as of right now, I actually haven't heard of either of those two teams actually making a bid, actually forcing Real Salt Lake to make a decision. So there's going to be some interesting. That's going to be an interesting one to follow. But Alex Freeman now is a member of Villarreal, and I wish him the best of luck. And it's going to be interesting to see if he goes straight into the 11 or if he is going to, whether they take a couple weeks before playing him so he can get embedded, he can get ingratiated, he can have a couple weeks on the training pitch, and then he can play, or if they're just going to be like, this upcoming weekend, all right, son, you're up. We'll see. But now there's a reason to watch Villarreal. So I certainly wish him the best. All right, guys, I do want to thank you for tuning in. Again, for those that are tuning in on X, obviously you guys can head over here to YouTube and hit the like and subscribe buttons. And for those that are watching on TikTok Live, I want to say thank you for tuning in. The link for my YouTube is in my description. So if you want to head over there and hit the subscribe button, you can show me some love. But again, I do want to thank those that push me over 400 as we get close to the World Cup. I'm sure that number is going to go up. So I do want to say thank you to those that like the show. So you guys enjoy your Tuesday evening. I will be back on Thursday because I want to talk a little bit about the U.S. chances at the World Cup and whether or not they can shock the world. Because it is of my opinion that host nations not only are giving good draws, but the way things shake out, there is a possibility that a deep run could be had. And if they get to a certain point in the tournament, then it just comes down to soccer and whether or not the United States can actually shock the world and do something that we have never done at a World Cup. So that will be on Thursday at 8:00. And I hope to see you then. Until then, you guys enjoy your evening. Take care, guys.
Rusted goalposts under fading sky.